Again, as we move through this, if you're able to, please rename yourselves, drop some intros in the chat. We just want to know who's in the room with us today. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and get things started. So before we really got into the meat of the presentation today, we just wanted to go ahead and introduce ourselves. So my name is Ambrosia Cowie. I go by she, they pronouns, and I'm the Director of Grants and Contracts here at CACF. I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to Kit to introduce herself.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Kit Lau, she, her, and I am the Senior Contracts Coordinator. I'll pass it to Francis.
Thank you very much, Kit, and a wonderful good morning to you folks. Thank you all for being here. My name is Francis. I'm the Grants Coordinator, he, him pronouns. I'll turn it back to you, Ambrosia.
Thank you. And in addition to my two colleagues I have in the call, I did want to do a couple introductions to the rest of our Grants and Contracts team. If you're awarded, you'll be interfacing with Camilla Song, who is our Grants and Contracts Associate. And we also have a couple of other team members that manage our different funds here at CACF. So we have Fiona and Simon, who work as our Grants and Contracts Coordinators. And we also have Juan, who is our Contracts and Invoicing Coordinator, who, if you work with CACF, I'm sure you're quite fond of because he does help with processing payments. So that is the Grants and Contracts team here at CACF. I did want to go into a little bit about CACF in case you're unfamiliar with our organization. So we are the Coalition for Asian American Children and Families, CACF. We're the nation's only Pan-Asian children and families advocacy organization that brings together community-based organizations as well as youth and community allies to fight for equity for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Every day, CACF collects and shares information that counters the model minority myth and sheds light on community needs. We train and advocate with AAPI youth, community organizations, community members, as social justice leaders. We're building a strong and sustainable coalition, and we're mobilizing that coalition of partners and allies to fight for systems and policy change towards equity. If you have any questions about CACF or would like to become involved with our programming, please reach out to us and we're happy to talk more about those opportunities. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to my colleague who's going to talk us through what we're going to be discussing here at our community briefing.
Yes, this is our agenda for the community briefing. First, we will talk about the background of the AAPI Community Development Fund, as well as organizational eligibility. Then we will review organizational vetting, the criteria for that, the funding focus areas, as well as the online application and the project evaluation criteria. Also, we'll discuss the budget and give you the application timeline and contact information and questions at the end.
Thank you very much, Kit, and good morning again, folks. So just a brief background about the New York State AAPI Community Development Fund. So CACF launched this fund through the 2021-2022 New York State AAPI equity budget with support from New York State legislators. And since 2022, CACF has implemented 2 grant cycles of the AAPI Community Development Fund, awarding a total of $670,000 to 37 awardees, so community-based orgs across New York State. For this cycle, for the 2024-2025 AAPI Community Development Fund, it will support holistic approaches to address hate, bias, and racism, address mental health needs and increase the safety of AAPI New Yorkers, and provide critical social and health programs and services that promote the safety and well-being of communities. Next slide, please.
We will also talk about organizational eligibility. To be eligible for the AAPI Community Development Fund, your organization must have tax-exempt status as a Section 501c3, and as well as be registered with the Charities Bureau of the NYS OAG. You must also be a New York State-based community organization that serves primarily New York State residents and have experience and have experience working with outreach to AAPI populations, and also be committed to equal employment opportunities and demonstrated a commitment and capacity to deliver cultural competent services. Very important also that organizations that have been allocated the 23-24 New York State equity budget will not be eligible for this AAPI Community Development Fund. Now, if your organization will have a fiscal sponsor, that's allowable, you're eligible to apply, but please know that all the criteria here applies to your fiscal sponsor as well. Next slide, please. There will be a vetting process for all applicants. CACF will conduct an internal vetting for your organization. Here is the list of databases and agency websites that we will check for your organization. We will go on the IRS database to make sure your organization does have tax exempt status, and also we'll check the New York State Department of State Corporations database to make sure your organization is incorporated, as well as to find you on the New York State Charities Bureau. The next two, which is the New York State Department of Labor compliance and the Compensation Board compliance list, we will be looking closely at the debarment list and just checking for if your organization has been compliant or not. We've sent the links on the chat box, and you're welcome to go onto these links and check the status of your organizations as well. And last but not least, the project budget is an Excel template, which you will find in the Google Form application that is to be uploaded to the Google Form application. And we will review all the costs that you have listed on your project budget just to make sure they're all allowable and compliant as well. And I'll pass it to Francis.
Thank you very much, Kit. So in talking about the funding, about the AAPI CDF funding, so these are the specific project areas that the AAPI CDF will be supporting. There are 8 project areas, as you can see, so I'm going to just read this for clarification. The first is community-based mental health and well-being. The second is direct services and support. The third is cultivation of safety and community. The fourth is racial literacy programming. Fifth is healing focused and community empowerment programs. The sixth is gender-based violence prevention and intervention. The seventh is cultural and arts programming. And the last is life-affirming multi-social services and other holistic supports. So with these project areas, we encourage applicants to choose more than one project area, but to also be very clear, applicants don't have to check off all project areas. So what matters most is that we want folks to have just the quality of the application, the project proposal, and really the alignment towards the selected project area that you feel is best. Next slide, please.
Okay, about your budget. Awards are up to 30,000 and cannot exceed 1/3 of your annual operating budget. So as you are thinking about what will be your budgeting for your project that you are going to submit on your application, please know that you can send in a proposed budget amount of no more than 30,000, and keep in mind that it cannot exceed 1/3 of your annual operating budget. The AAPI Community Development Fund is also a reimbursement-based award. So what this means is that organizations must pay their project costs upfront before receiving reimbursement. And in order to receive reimbursement, organizations will submit an expense claim along with supporting documents to us for review and approval. And awardees will be required to spend down their full award amount. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Kit. So the online application, we know we started sending out once the RFA went live a little over a week and a half ago. We also sent you the application link, which will also drop in the chat box. So the online application, it's a two-part online application. The first part, it asks about organizational background and info. And the second part will ask for the project description and budget. In this application, you will be asked to attach both your current organizational budget along with your proposed project budget. And we have a doc available of the application questions. So if folks do request one, we are happy to provide that. Next slide, please. So for the project evaluation criteria, it's first important to make sure that your project, it's focused, it's well-defined, and it clearly aligns with one of the project areas that you selected. Also, it's important to make sure that your project holistically addresses hate and bias, as is the primary objective of the AAPI CDF award. It's also important to make sure that you have a very compelling reason for the project and also how it relates to the impact of the AAPI communities that your organization serves. Also, another important point is that the work that your organization does, that it demonstrates linguistic and cultural capacity in terms of providing cultural competent and language accessible services, along with just an understanding of the cultural and linguistic needs of the populations you're serving. We want to stress, the last 3 points highlighted on this slide. So along with having a proposed project, it's also important that the project has clear and realistically achievable timeline, given that this award is a time-limited project, along with having a proposed impact. Also important is having a clear project budget that reflects on the proposed project, which leads into the last point. It's also important as you're drafting and thinking about your proposed project budget, making sure that the reasonable project costs with a proposed revenue, are clearly outlined, and one that again reflects on what you will be able to accomplish with your proposed project. Next slide, please.
Here are the important dates of the AAPI CDF application and the timeline. The project timeframe and the budget period will begin September 1st, 2024, this year, and it will end next year, March 31st. So this gives you 7 months for completion of your project. We have already released the RFA on June 17th. If you haven't received the RFA, which means request for applications, please get in touch with Francis and myself. Here, we are conducting the first virtual community briefing right now, June 25th, and the second briefing will take place July 11th. We are holding virtual office hours if you have any questions regarding the application on July 15th to 19th, which is the week before the application is due on June 22nd. The decisions will be sent out to all applicants on August 23rd. Whether you are awarded or not, you will receive a notification on your application status. The project start date again is September 1st, and the completion date is March 31st, giving 7 months. Next slide, please.
And thank you, Kit, for sharing the timeline. So as we're sharing all this important information with you, along with as you're planning accordingly in applying, please reach out to us. Our contact info is listed on here. And for the emails that you've been receiving from us, we're happy to help in any way possible. And again, if there's any way we can support, please let us know. And with that being said, we'll turn it over for questions.
All right, we are finished with our formal presentation, and we really wanted to leave a lot of space open for questions if anybody has them. So I'm going to go ahead and stop screen sharing for now. We will be sharing out this recording. We'll be posting it online, and we'll be sharing these slides if that's useful to folks. But does anybody have any questions that they want to share in this space that they have about the RFA?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Pragna. I had questions. I represent Durga Temple of Westchester. And I had a question since I've never applied for grant before. I was reading some of the things you had, and I was looking at the healing focused and community-based program. So I was trying to understand what, my understanding of it is different than I don't know what would qualify for grant. So I was trying to understand that there were two headings that I thought we could work on. One is the life-affirming multi-social services and other holistic support, and the other is the healing focused. So can you give me an idea? Because when you read the description, you can interpret it in many different ways.
Yes, thank you so much for that question. And honestly, the project areas were as broad as possible to make sure that folks who are doing the work, who are engaging the work, that they know that community is the best, are able to propose in these areas. So they're purposefully broad. So I think you were talking about thinking of applying for the healing focus and community empowerment programs and the life affirming multi-social service programs.
As a temple, I'm a temple, but we do all kinds of activity, cultural, religious.
Yeah, of course. So I can read a little bit of the definition of healing focused and life affirming. So healing focused, if you propose in that area, we're looking for projects that create safe spaces that enable AAPI communities to heal and engage in collective cultural practices that positively reinforce our identities. So that feels really in line with the temple. There's more information in the description, but I feel if you're able to craft specifically what you're doing, and if it fits in that in a specific project area, if you tell us why you think it fits there, that's perfectly fine. That's exactly what we're looking for. There isn't like very strict definitions. It's really open to interpretation so that the work you're doing fits into these project areas versus the other way around. And you were talking about life affirming multi-social services. So the definition of that is to create wellness in communities, which is the underpinning of safety and security. So this area, we list a lot of different services that folks can engage in: small business services, food delivery and pantry, healthcare navigation, housing assistance, just a number of different services. But again, we're looking at really holistic support of community. So if you can define what that means to you within this program area, that's exactly what we're looking for. We're trying not to be prescriptive in these project areas. Did that answer your question?
The second question I had was, does safety and concerns of seniors go under any of these headings?
It can go in many headings. It just depends on what you're doing.
Okay. So one of the things that you said is that we have to spend the money up front. So all of it has to be spent up front?
Not all of it. So should you be awarded, I guess the payment timeline for awards is you will get a 25% advance on your award. So you'll get 25% of your award when we execute a subcontract, but the remaining 75% you will need to spend upfront and claim as a reimbursement.
Okay. So I guess the last question that I have is, we use a priest, correct? So he gets a salary. Now he helps us do a lot of this activity. So that's something we are doing on a monthly basis. So if I wanted to put that in there, does that count as ongoing or what we paid in the past, or how does it work?
You can definitely include salaries for folks who are directly related to your project and your project budget. And that salary can be from anywhere between September 1st, 2024 to March 31st, 2024. So that's going to be the contract period of this award if you are awarded it. So costs have to be incurred within that area.
Okay. Okay. I think that's about all I had. The last question I had is that you had said that we have to be registered under Board of Charities. So is that something that all the organizations have to do?
That is something that all the organizations have to do. But if you are not registered with Charities Board at this moment, reach out to us and we can talk through options for that. Okay.
Okay. So because we are a new organization, but I was not involved in the original process when we have a 501c, we registered through IRS, we have everything else. I am also registered for New York State and SFS and all that, but I'm not sure about the Charities Board. So that's something I'll have to look into it. And so I can contact you guys at the emails that you put up there.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And
Thank
we'll
you for your
troubleshoot
time
with
and
that,
your help.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for attending. I see questions in the chat. That's really quick. Oh, I'm going to answer the chat question because that's a quick question. And I'm going to go to Kim, Vaishali, and then you, Anna. So in the chat, I see the Department of Labor and Workers' Comp websites. The idea is that we do not show up on them. Is that correct? Because it's a debarment list. Correct, Teresa. Those are debarment lists. So ideally, you're not on that list. If you are, then we'll need to talk a little bit further with your organization. So not on the debarment list, but we're looking for you to be on the IRS, the Charities Bureau, etc. Let me know if that answered your question. And feel free to drop additional questions in the chat. Moving on to Kim.
Hi, Kim from Asians Fighting Injustice. I just had a question because the grant period covers quite a bit of time, and we have quite a bit going on planned from like August through March. Is this per program, or can we put, for example, we have an empowerment event, but we also have our food distribution event. Would those go on the same application, or do we pick one or the other?
That is up to you. You can pick one or the other. You can lump a bunch of different programs and partially pay for programs. It's very, very open. I think what we're looking for is reasoning behind why you're picking things, and its connection to the different project areas and the purpose of funding in the RFA.
Okay. So if they are all kind of related in various ways, that's perfectly okay?
That's perfectly okay.
Awesome. Oh, sorry, just got a text message. Is this something that we could apply for? Is this a recurring grant or is this a one-off grant?
That's a wonderful question that I cannot answer probably in the way you want to. It is not a confirmed recurring grant. We have gotten this funding for the past several years. This is our third iteration of the AAPI CDF, but we do fight for these funds annually. So it is not something that's guaranteed past this year, but we and our policy team, I think Felicia was on here, but if she's not, the policy team at CACF does incredible advocacy for state funding. So they fight for it every year. So if we get it, we will offer it.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. Vaishali?
I had a question.
Oh, you're next, Anna. Dr.
Hi,
George.
thank you so much for doing this today and all the information that you've shared. And I think you answered my question. I just want to reconfirm. So the money that would be rewarded to us through this fund has to be used for programs that are from September to March. Like if I had a program that I'm hosting here for the youths in August, that the funds couldn't go towards that, correct?
The funds couldn't go towards that in August. If your program starts in August but continues on afterward, we could fund that specific portion after September 1st, but we can't do anything before or after that period.
Okay, or even pay for any staff or any contracts or anything like that that continue throughout the whole entire year? Is that?
We can definitely do that. So if your program is a continuous program and you want to pay for a portion of it between August and March, September and March, that's totally fine. Just you can tell us in your application what specific portion and what programming you want to apply this award to, as long as it falls between September 1st and March 31st.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. George, it's up to you.
Hi, so I'm Dr. George, President of Indian Nurses Association of New York. We have received the award in 22-23 for the anti-Asian hate. I just wanted to make sure that we are eligible to apply again for this grant.
I am 85% sure that you are. If one of my colleagues, Francis or Kit, do you remember?
I want to say it's 22-23, but just want to make sure.
Yeah, if you received CDF before, that's totally fine. You can definitely receive it again. It's just if you're receiving 23-24 equity line items, you cannot. Francis, I saw you briefly unmute. Do you know?
Yeah, Ambrosia, yeah, you said the last part. So, Dr. George, good morning. Yes, Indian Nurses Association, yes, you can apply for this cycle.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dr. George. Jing, I see your hand up.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I just have a question, like following the previous question Dr. George asked. What's the relationship between EBC and CDF? Like, I know if I got EBC before, I cannot apply for CDF this time, but if we didn't get it before, shall we apply it? I know they are having something on right now. So can I apply to both, or I shouldn't do that?
You cannot receive funding from both the EBC line item and CDF. So let me go back to your initial question about the relationship between the EBC and CDF. The EBC stands for Equity Budget Coalition, which is a coalition that CACF co-leads along with AAF. And that coalition is the entity that advocates annually for these funding. So they're the ones doing the work with the electeds. They do a ton of advocacy. They do a ton of outreaches. They do a ton of action. And that coalition is actually what secures this funding. And so the reason why folks who are receiving 23-24 equity allocations cannot apply to the 24-25 CDF is because those monies come from the same pot. So folks already receiving EBC are already getting money through this award. 24-25 CDF actually is from the previous fiscal year allocation, which is why there's that overlap and that misalignment in dates. But that's essentially why folks who are already receiving EBC cannot apply for CDF, because this is specifically for folks who are not getting funded through that, and for organizations that we want to support who are not already getting money. I do want to check in. Felicia, do you want to say anything else about EBC, just in case folks are interested on this call? No pressure if not.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm logging on through my phone. Hi, everyone. Good to see so many folks on here who are interested in the Community Development Fund. That's amazing. Our Equity Budget Coalition is something that's really important because we want to make sure that folks across New York are able to join the coalition. And joining the coalition can look like several different things. It could be joining the coalition to learn about advocacy and fighting for equity. It could be joining the coalition out of interest of eventually being funded through the Equity Budget Coalition as well. I think a great way to eventually be funded in a larger way is through going through the CDF, because it really does show organizations the type of documentation, the type of work it takes to be funded to uptake a government grant. So you don't have to be a member of CACF to join our Equity Budget Coalition. You don't have to be someone, organization that is able to uptake grant just yet. If you want to just learn about what it takes to advocate at the state level, it's a really great and inspiring learning process for sure. So if you'd like to learn more, I'll put my email in the chat for anyone who's interested.
That answered your question, Jing. And just going to the chat, there's a couple of questions there I wanted to address. Teresa asked, so if you received 23-24, are you not eligible for 24-25 to apply? That depends on what we're referring to. If you are an organization that's receiving 23-24 AAPI equity dollars, so that is a different fund, that is through EBC, then you are not eligible to apply for 24-25 CDF. If you receive 23-24 AAPI CDF funding, then you may be eligible to apply for 24-25 CDF if you're not receiving equity funding. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, I got a little nervous there because I was a little confused. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of years and there's a lot of acronyms. So if you're at all wondering if you're eligible, just reach out and we can confirm with you. Any other questions that folks have? I see Francis uplifted a question in the chat. What is the total amount to be granted in this cycle, 24-25? The total amount that we were allocated for this cycle was $350,000. Any other questions that I can answer for folks? Okay. I'm hearing none. So I think we're going to go ahead and end the session. Thank you everybody for applying. The CACF Grants and Contracts team is going to stay on for just a little bit in case any last minute questions come up. But if none, please feel free to reach out to us. We're always available. We know that July 22nd deadline is looming, so we'll keep eyes on our inboxes and our chats and our phones. So please reach out to us at any time that you need support or assistance. We're really happy to provide that for you. Again, we'll be having another one on July 11th, another community briefing. But please, if you have any questions, reach out to us. Feel free to attend that. We're here for you as we navigate this 24-25 cycle of CDF. Thank you, folks. Have a wonderful day.